Here we are coming into the end of Q1. It's always a struggle for salespeople, and everybody in radio these days is wearing so many different hats. You don't do just one job anymore. Some people are doing the jobs of 5 or 10 people, and the salespeople are pretty beat up these days, especially kicking off the year. Radio is different than it was this time last year. Radio is different than it was this time 5 years ago. We're now all in sales, but what does that actually mean? And we've got some amazing people here to talk about how they're working with their stations and their sales departments to do bigger and better things. I mean, for you, what does it mean to be in sales these days?
Gosh, it's everything. I mean, sales keeps the lights on, and I've been in radio almost 20 years, and it kind of started off where there was almost this clash. It was like, oh, sales versus programming, and now it's how do we support sales? How do we help them get that revenue, make that budget, get through Q1, 2, 3, 4? How do we support them to support the staff?
Yeah, revenue is obviously one of the most important things to keep our jobs. We're lucky that we're salaried employees, but it's not just spots and dots revenue anymore. And Mojo, your team does a phenomenal job with all kinds of things.
I always tell anybody that's on air or in programming that you're no longer on air and you're no longer in programming. You are the sales representative of your show, your station. And it's interesting because we're living in a time right now where I know there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of worries of cuts and more cuts possibly happening. You have to be uncuttable. And the only way that you can become uncuttable, it used to be back in the day, was you had great ratings. You could have the best ratings in the world if you don't have money attached to you as a personality or even as a programmer. If your station's not building revenue, then you're in trouble. And now it's gotten to a point where it is so much more exaggerated that way. Our team that we have, and we actually still have a team, and a lot of people will say to me, how is it that you still have that many people there? Because we're making money. If we weren't making money, I guarantee you they'd be the first people that would be cut. So I always say to everybody on the show, how much money can you attach to yourself, and how much can we do to help make more money for the others at the radio station? And we know this from the years of when radio was actually, guys out doing blow and stuff like that all the time or whatever. I don't know. That never happened here. I heard country did all that stuff. I was always pop radio. But now it's how can we actually sponsor the blow? But no, I'm
But also, you mentioned that having a team, and teams have changed over the years, and a lot of stuff has gone to more of a regional structure. And you've got some people that are cross-selling multiple brands and multiple formats. And how do you keep them engaged and knowing your stations and all the differences that you have that other people don't have?
Well, when you really think about sales, it's a different paradigm now, where we used to say, we'll build it, everyone will show up. Well, now we kind of have to think differently. And we got to go to our clients. We got to go to our advertisers. What do you want, and how could we make it work for you? But we do have to sell cross platforms. We have to sell everything. We have to sell ourselves every single day. And it's not just spots and dots. It's not just personalities. It's what can I do for our clients so that we can make money and continue to be relevant to our listeners as well as our clients.
Yeah, and I was saying how everyone feels beat down right now because the goals and generating revenue is hard. How do you keep your salespeople engaged with your brands and with your products? And Mojo, you have a big show, and you guys do a lot of stuff. How do you keep them so energized to be behind you 100%?
I used to get upset when a salesperson would come in and talk about something that we talked about all morning and they didn't hear it. And then I started becoming more of a realist, and I started realizing not everybody can wake up in the morning and listen to the morning show. They've got families, they've got things to do. And one of the things that we're going to show in one of the slides is we put out a sizzle basically to our sales team every single day. What you see is basically what we did on that show, and this is actually a show that had a lot of compelling stuff going on it. It was actually a morning that we announced that my wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. You could hear the audio link that's on there so they could hear the entire segment, so that when they're getting calls from their clients saying, oh my God, I heard Mojo talking about Chelsea this morning, they know what's going on. They could hear exactly the promotions that we did that morning. They can hear the other big bits that we were doing. And then tomorrow, here's the things that we're going to do on the show tomorrow. We want to make it easier for them just like I want to know what they're doing. And they send us their sizzles. They send us who are their clients that they're gearing towards. It used to be, hey, can you make a video? I hate doing the videos. I would rather FaceTime the person and catch them off guard, or I would rather call and personally talk to them. One of the things that I will say to any on-air talent here, if you don't have endorsements, it's not because the sales department didn't sell you, it's because you didn't sell you. Every day when I leave the station, and this is no joke, I try to call at least one of the clients I do an endorsement for. Out of the blue calls are way better than a call telling me, hey, I'm calling to basically keep you from pulling your advertising. An out of the blue call is, hey, Mike at Gordon Chevrolet, how's everything going? How's the family? What's going on? That is so important. It's such a little time. And if he doesn't answer the call, you leave a voicemail message and just say, hey, just wanted to shoot the shit. What's going on? It means so much more to them than when they're being sold the big package that's going to be coming.
Yeah, and looking at this, going over your entire show, you could spark some ideas. And again, you got very vulnerable, talked about something with your personal life on the show.
Well, listen, one of the biggest things that happened off of, my wife being diagnosed with cancer and, her fight was that others reached out to her that were also battling ovarian cancer. And it's not I'm not trying to say, hey, we're selling the ovarian cancer. But what it is we are all humans, right? We all feel something. We all hurt. We all love. We all, cheer great moments. So do your clients. So do your advertisers. So do your listeners. We can't control ratings as much as we can control revenue. It is so important that you control what you can control. And I've learned this from guys like Tim Richards over the years, who's been my longtime buddy. Tim's always given me the best personal advice, even more so than professional. And it's like, don't get caught up in the things that you can't control. And it's really important that nowadays you go back to your home and you go back to your radio station and you realize, all right, yeah, I can help sell. I can go out on a promotion and show up even when I'm not getting paid. That's as important as ever.
And you can hear the audio, by the way, in the takeaways in the CRS app. If you don't have it, I highly suggest downloading it right now to your phone. It's free in your App Store or Google Play. So, again, we have audio in there, but I come from a smaller market where I am the staff. I don't have people, so I have to go out of my way to make sure that I keep everybody in the loop. And I have a takeaway that's in the app that I will not bore you here with all the pages of stuff, but every single week, I want to get people engaged with what's happening, and I keep them informed of where are we, with contesting? What are we doing digitally? What are we doing in the community? And also looking for ways to spark additional revenue opportunities or sponsorship opportunities, or maybe even something digitally, or figure out a way to get us more on the streets and more in person. By the way, if you'd like to join in this conversation, you can always text your questions to us as well. The number is right here on the screen, 844-358-0001. So any questions along the way, we are happy to jump in and answer those for you, because we have three of the most respected people in the industry up here. Let's talk, Dana, about trying to engage with your sales team from afar. If you don't know this, Dana lives in the Eastern time zone, but the stations that she handles on a day-to-day basis is 3 time zones away. You've got a time difference there, you've got climate differences there, you've got formats that are different. How are you able to work with your teams across the country and keep them engaged with their brands and help grow revenue?
Well, just for the opportunity to do that, because my husband got a promotion, which moved me from California to Ohio, I just try to show my appreciation to make it work. 11 a.m. is West Coast, 8 a.m., but I'm at the computer 8 a.m. my time, just catching up, doing emails, doing decks for sales, just making sure I'm there for the team, because I am appreciative to be able to work remotely and keep my stations because I love them so much. Nighttime is dinner, bath with kids, bedtime, but I have a good support staff. My husband will take that stuff so I can do my late night Zooms, client-facing Zooms, meetings, just to be there. I just make it work.
Yeah, there's always we say the perception versus reality when it comes to are you selling a commercial? Are you doing an endorsement campaign? Are you doing a digital campaign? Is it social engagement? Is there videos there? Can you talk a little bit about the perception versus reality in your world from the promotions and marketing end, connecting with your sales team and sales managers?
Right. Yeah. So their perception for sales, especially, is like, oh, they sell commercials. You hear the commercials after the songs, and they do so much more reality as they sell events, sponsorships, digital. They can sell a broadcast. They'll sell the shirt you're wearing during your live broadcast at Stagecoach. The opportunities are endless. On-air talent, the perception is that they just talk in between songs, but they do so much more. The reality is they're in the community. They're out there raising money, giving back to nonprofits. John and Tammy, San Diego, they help out so many nonprofits. Kelly and Anthony at my station too. Their on-air talents do so much more. They're influencers. You see them talk about something on social media. The listeners are probably more apt to be influenced on that product versus someone they don't know. Promotions, giveaways, the perception is, tickets, you have to listen on air. But the reality is you can do so much more. If you have one pair of tickets, you can make a package, a drive to retail package, and expand it, make it 5-6 weeks, make foot traffic for the client. You can do so much more than what people think.
Yeah, you mentioned influencers, and a couple of years ago, Nicole Mahalik mentioned that radio personalities are the OG influencers.
They are.
And I think that's a very important art form of ours. And Mojo, I know your team does a ton with going outside of the show, but doing so much more brand influencing for not just the show, but for your clients.
Listen, I got people that work on our show that probably make 60 to 70% more than what their salary is off of their endorsements, and are willing to make more. They're willing to do more. It used to be, what does the job pay? It's not what does the job pay, it's what can you make the job pay. And there are people like Keith Kaufman, who's here, who worked for iHeart negotiating the contracts for iHeart. Now he's an agent, and Keith and I were having a conversation because Keith actually is who represents me now. And I asked him, a question about negotiating for other people. And I said, how hard is it negotiating now? And he said to me, he goes, it's only hard if the talent is not out in doing their share of bringing money in and revenue in. If they are, it's going to be easier. And I noticed from my team that the people that are on our show are amazing with clients because they take the level of lead from myself and Shannon, who have been there for a long time, because that's always been our goal. We were talking about talent fees backstage, and we were saying that there's the perception that, if they're not going to pay my talent fee, I'm not going to take it. That has got to be out the door. It's got to be complete. That's old thought. It's got to not be what is the talent fee. It's got to be what is the buy. What kind of money are they going to spend, and what is the future money that they will spend if this is successful for them? I would rather take let's get them in the door, because once we get them in the door, we can make them a bigger client. There's a lot of times where I'll see or hear talent that say, how much is the talent fee for going out this weekend on a Saturday or whatever it is? It's not about it is it going to benefit us in the future and make it more revenue for us, which is going to eventually make you more likely to not get cut by your company.
Yeah, there's obviously some goals there too. Let's go back to perception versus reality. George, when we're talking about radio and network, you have multiple formats across the entire country, big name personalities. How do you get them engaged with your sales departments?
Well, we've got twofold now. Not only are we selling national spots, but we're also selling local spots to, over 1,000 radio stations. So, as far as endorsements go, it could be wildly different talent fee for a national spot as to a local spot. So we work individually with our sales department, whether it's a national or a local. And first thing we have to do, though, is we have to let everybody know how good radio works. And I think we've not done a good job. We've said this for years, that we just don't do a good job of selling radio. And what we do, at Westwood One is we try to put out information that we could send to our local radio stations, our local affiliates, to let them take this information to their clients to show them the perception versus reality of what radio is. This slide here was a study that was done that just says what's the perception of radio listening to Pandora or Spotify, and you see what the perception is here. But when you look at the reality of what it actually is, it's completely different. And we have to continue to tell that story. And one of the things we do for our Westwood One affiliates is every month we put out a one sheet that the sales department can take and show their clients. They can slap a logo on it. Hopefully it's something you're all doing at a local radio station that shows the relevance of radio and the power of radio and what we can deliver as far as ad dollars and putting butts in the seat or getting traffic to a client by using our personalities, by using promotions. We just have to do a better job and continually grow at letting people know how relevant and how good. And I was just reading a study, I think that came out today or yesterday, that radio is still by far one of the best ways to spend ad dollars. And we got to continue to tell that story to our clients.
Yeah, it's all about the KPI and return on investment. Again, the reach there. And you were talking about listening to your talent, and there are certain times. But Mojo, you made a point earlier about everyone's lives is disrupted and different these days. And besides just having your terrestrial broadcast show every single morning, you go and branch out way further than that with other platforms.
We broadcast our show in the morning on iHeart app, so you can hear us on the 3 stations that we're on: Detroit, Grand Rapids, Toledo. On the radio, we're on Facebook Live, we're on Twitch, we're on TikTok Live, we're on YouTube. We want you to consume us no matter where it is. That's the goal, is to consume us. It's audio that is encoded audio, so if there is an opportunity to get a Nielsen meter, which are there any of them out there? I don't even know sometimes. I've never met anybody that has ever had one. I think it's a myth, but I don't even work for Cumulus, and I'm saying that. But I do know this. We've got engagement, and we sell a sponsorship to our studio. Our studio sponsorship is sold to Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness National calls the local Detroit, Grand Rapids, Toledo guy and goes, "Boy, I don't know what you spent for that studio sponsorship, but I'm on TikTok and all I see are Mojo's War of the Roses. And you're right in the background, and people are literally commenting, Planet Fitness is busting a cheater today," or, "Oh my God, I can't believe that. I hope that person loses their membership at Planet Fitness." And they're tagging them in it. Now we've just raised the price of that studio endorsement. No, you think about that. You talk about ROI. We are so small-minded sometimes in thinking that the ROI is the listener on the radio or on the app. It's the listener that we can get anywhere, and it doesn't have to be a Detroit, Grand Rapids, or Toledo listener. It can be anybody. So I know that, ours is different than probably a lot. There's probably many of the stations here that have one maybe live talent in the entire building. I just went to Tucson to go on a trip to go visit where I used to work. Walked in the door, and they thought I was robbing the place because they hadn't seen anybody in forever. And it's sad, but it's also, that's where you come into play with your national talent, and in a phone call to you saying, "Hey, I need Harmon to do something," all right, you know what I mean? Like, that means they'll do it because they love doing it. But I think that we do podcasts every single day. I do a podcast, with my wife. Go out and host every single event possible. You guys know this. All in the means of not doing anything other than just trying to get an engagement out of somebody. I don't care where you consume us. I don't care what you do. But if people know about what's going on with the radio, you were going to ask this later in the thing, but I have so many tips I want to give away. One of the questions that you're going to ask is, what's your tip to go away with? One of my tips I thought of to say was, the best way to get a client, if you are going out and engaging with them, is to do your show and talk about that guy or that lady. Because if their neighbor calls them or their neighbors call them and say, "Oh my God, I heard, Mojo go on forever about you are the greatest ever," and whatever the deal is, If their neighbors hear them and tell them that, guess what? They think they know that their advertised or their clients are going to. It is the best sales technique that I've been doing since I was 20 years old coming up in this business. And it was basically, it's the personal. Everybody wants to hear their name. And if you're not doing that as an on-air talent and you're not calling these people up on a daily basis, you're making your job that much harder to keep.
I know you made a joke about ratings. That used to be kind of our key indicator of our success. But now when you're going out with your sales department, what kind of data and research should you be bringing to the table? I mean, it affects all of us a little bit differently. We just go down let's start with George. Like, you work with national talent. What kind of data do you give out to your sales team to get them to sell your personalities in your shows?
Well, since we're owned by Cumulus, we just say it works. No, I think it's results. You can go again. I'm lucky enough to work on a national level and work on a super local level. And I work with probably 95% of our affiliates, 1,000 plus affiliates, don't get ratings. They don't use ratings at all. What do? They use results. They use the power of our jocks and our programming, and they go out and sell it. I always used to laugh. Our biggest critic is, the owner of a radio station who his best friend is telling him why he doesn't like the programming that we have. And we find out his best friend is the car dealership who's his number one advertiser who he has, drinks with every afternoon. But those are the types of people that we're trying to attract all the time, as well as the national Geicos and Home Depots. So we're trying to do this on both sides of it, and we have to use our talent because that's the biggest asset that we have.
But do you check their metrics, like maybe their social media followers? Dana, let's go to contesting for a second, because one of the things that I love, I'm all about data, and I want to see, I want to get that first party data. I want to see how many unique entries are into a contest. Is that stuff that you're turning back to your sales team to have them go out and show, here is the engagement that our station is having?
Yeah, so we do a big contest. There's two things in the SoCal markets people want: Disneyland tickets or Stagecoach tickets. Disneyland is untouchable, so we moved to Stagecoach. We do Road to Stagecoach, and it's a 3-tier. You have to register online. That's how we get the data. You have to listen for your name on air. That's how we set the appointment listenings. And then when you win, we send them to Stagecoach, and then we send the reports back to the sponsors. I mean, over 8,000. And we do it in 2 phases, too. So I think we got over 8,000 last year entries. Out of the 8,000 entries, maybe 6,800 were opt-ins. And that goes to the client, and they can send them promotional opportunities. It's all opt-ins for them. And part of our platform is you can do bonus entries. So if you follow the socials, you get a bonus entry. And Toyota of Redlands is our sponsor for K-Frog. I mean, they went from 4,200 followers to over 12,000 followers because of the bonus entry over the past 2 to 3 years of being the sponsor for the contest.
Yes, that is huge. Again, and nobody else can offer that and show that, and that's real, factual information. And Mojo, you guys have tons of followers on social. How do you showcase who's organically following your station, or who are real people?
Well, you were talking about how do you show them, the level of what we could do for them. Show them engagement. Show them what the engagement is on something that we did on the show. Show them what engagement would be for them. I have a client that I do commercials for. It's a fast food client. They're local in Detroit, and they're branching out all over the place. They're called Middle Eats. They advertise with me not on how many lunches they sell. They advertise with me on how much their app gets downloaded. They just want people to download their app, because the moment that they get the app downloaded, they know that now they have information about who it is that is out there to be able to send information to them. And that is pretty much what I'm doing. I'm selling that. When we have clients that are giving away cars on our show, or we have a big promotion, their whole deal is not how many cars am I going to sell. Their deal is how much engagement am I going to get from that. We just gave away a car just a couple of minutes ago, or not a couple minutes ago, but a couple of weeks ago. And yes, it was an amazing car giveaway. And his thing that he said to me was, "Oh my God, this was amazing." It wasn't how many people were in the dealership that day and how great the contest was. He said, our engagement on our website through you guys and what we were able to get off of that was amazing. We got a ton of potential leads. you can quantify that and make it quantifiable. There is somebody in this room, and I don't know where she's at, but somebody needs to hire her. I'm just going to do plugs all day. KP, Kristen Penrose, is here. She worked on our show. She's probably one of the biggest reasons why our TikTok is as good as it is and our social game is as good. She should be a morning show host for somebody here in this room. She wants to do a country morning show. And I'm going to tell you why you would hire her. You will hire her because there will be no greater single promotion or seller at your station than KP. Here's the thing that comes with KP. She gets everything that you probably don't get. And if she doesn't, she is a analytics machine. She will figure out the analytics to it. Now, the reason why I have these people that have worked, come in and work is because you cannot be the smartest person in the room. And if you're the smartest person in the room, you're going to fail. And there are smarter people that are out there. And we look every single day at what our business is doing. We are the worst at telling people how great radio is. Bob Pittman says this all the time. We are great at promoting others except promoting ourselves. Stop talking negatively about this. Stop sharing and spreading bad words. Stop going to sites like shitty DJs and shitty whatever the hell it is. Because I'm telling you, the negativity out there is just unbelievable. Radio, and you look at those numbers, is still alive. Now, are we hanging on? Maybe a little bit at occasions, but I will say this to you. You come to Detroit, Michigan, and you talk to some of the people that advertise on Mojo in the morning, you are going to see bona fide great, clients that they depend on us. And if we go away, they're in trouble. And if you are somebody that is not selling yourself, you're making a huge mistake. It used to be back in the day that we were the best at selling ourselves. Now we're like the worst at selling ourselves. Country radio, you guys get it better than anybody because you have artists that give a shit. I've got pop artists that, I can't even walk by them at our jingle balls and say hi to them sometimes. So make sure that you guys embrace that and love that and spread the word about that. And don't just spread it about country radio, spread it about all radio because it all benefits. You got other stations in your buildings right now that need your help.
When a client comes to you and says, just radio is just not enough for me. I need more. You made a good point about pushing those app downloads for one of your clients. What are some other non-traditional campaigns that you can generate and take to your sales team and get them to bring additional revenue opportunities in for your brands?
One of the best things that we have probably 30 or 40 clients that I know I could pick up the phone and say, hey, would you give me money for something? Like, I want to do a promotion and like an outrageous promotion where we send somebody on the show somewhere or we do something with a listener, and they'll give it to us. It's the relationship aspect of it. And the reason why they do it is they know that, and one of them is this car dealer in town. He owns a Ford dealership. He gives me money all the time during the Lions, season to be able to give away tickets, but do a stupid promotion out in front of, Ford Field because he knows he's going to get talked about. Come up with non-traditional ways of getting somebody noticed. We have always been the medium that always came up with the ideas, and then all of a sudden we were stolen by Ellen, and in television kind of did it. Movies started kind of doing it. Product placement. We were the product placement people. Look what's happening to TV right now. I mean, how many times do you guys look at the local television station, and there's probably like 12 people working in the entire building, I think, right now, and they're all like maybe 21 years old. And what they did was they closed themselves off to not be influencers. We are not radio personalities. We are influencers. And we are the best influencers out there. And if you talk to a guy like Bob Pittman, Bob's been saying that for a decade now. But nobody understands that. And I think all the companies should say that. In our market, we have this, and I don't know if there's other Detroit people here. We have actual influencers with 6,000 followers that get better representation at the Detroit Red Wings games than me in my 26 years of being on the radio in Detroit too. And yet, I've got, 500,000 or so, 750,000 or whatever. I don't even know how many followers we have, but I got 10 times the followers. But it's my fault because I need to be in front of those guys and, giving them hey, we can do the same thing for you, if not on a better and bigger level.
Yeah, and George, you have some national talent, some very huge national talent. How do you get them to engage with your local stations, maybe the ones that don't even have ratings, to help them generate some new third-party revenue opportunities? It's something that's different they've never done before.
Yeah, we're always looking to find out what the client is expecting, what they need. You know, like I said before, the days of building it and they will come are over. We have to design, customize special promotions or products for our client in any way that we can. Something that, in one of the markets that I was in, and I stole it from them because I didn't come up with this idea, was they had one of their clients, loved to hear himself on the radio, who would do all the spots. They decided to do the spots live. The guy would call in, and it would be a bit. Turned into a huge thing. I stole it for a couple of other markets because it worked so well. But just finding different ways to do that. One of the big tips that I always like to tell everybody, as a programmer, as a promotions person, even as an air talent, your best friend should be your sales manager. If you're in programming and promotions, you should be going to sales meetings. You should be inviting your talent into those sales meetings. One, you got to make sure that the salespeople know your product and know what they're selling. You'd be, pretty ashamed to find out that a lot of your salespeople are just selling numbers. They have to sell what we have here, that emotion and what we can deliver to the client. So that's got to be your best friend. You've got to be going to those sales meetings to find out what the clients are looking for. You got to go on client calls. You have to figure out what the client wants. Again, doesn't matter what your ratings are. If we are not bringing in advertising dollars, it just is not going to work. So we have to continue to do that.
I always tell everybody on the show, your notes section of your phone is your greatest form of prep, because anything is a bit, right, or a conversation that you can bring to the radio. So write it in your phone. I started maybe a year and a half ago, maybe less. I start sales, and I send our sales manager, Kim, hey, I walked into this store today. I met this manager, huge fan of the show, might be a good person to go to. Our sales departments are all about trying to get new leads. We have new management that are on the upper end. They're very, very, they're pushing that. And I got it. I'm going to help them get new leads. And their new leads are going to be, I'm going out and, I just spent 30 minutes talking to this manager at my table, when I'm sitting there having dinner with my wife, who's the most patient human being ever. And let's see what we got. It doesn't make a difference what it is. A caller calls in and they work for General Motors. What do you do for we ask them a million questions. We had, back in the day, a sales rep that used to be at the station that would call those people nonstop. Now we tell Lydia, write that number down and send it to sales. Because our goal is, if that person's that engaged with the station and the show, maybe, you never know, they have the ability to make a commitment to us. And we talk about this on the air. We tell our listeners, hey, it's not like a telethon and we're begging for money, but have you ever thought about advertising? And one of the things that we run on the air is me saying, if you ever want to advertise just like these guys are doing, we'd love to talk to you. Here's my personal email address, mojo@iHeartRadio or iHeartMedia.com. And I get those emails and I answer them back and then forward with a copy, Kim. And I think that is, the best form of sales that you can possibly have, is you personally following up with them.
One of the things, too, I just wanted to add on top of that, for decades, as a jock, you're prepping 24/7. Your show prep never ends. Now we have to add another level to that, just what you were saying. Not only show prep, but sales prep. Are you walking into a place that have they ever advertised? We do that at Westwood One and Cumulus, where they want us to send in leads. Well, as a national, it's kind of tough because I'm not local. But you never know. I think I turned in, and I think we got some ad dollars from Farmers Only. Who would have thought? But guess what? They didn't think about it. We put something together, and hopefully they'll advertise.
We have a guy on our show. His name is Kev. He's got 12 jobs. It's amazing. He is the voice of the Pistons, voice of Michigan State basketball, and he comes and does our show. Guy's always there. Sales asked for leads, and they said, hey, if you guys have any leads, can you do it? Kev went out to lunch to one of his favorite wing places in Detroit. They had literally the bowl that says throw your business card in there for free, dinner. He took the bowl with him and grabbed the cards. And so he came in one day and he told the story on the air, and he goes, I got all the business cards. I'm going through it. And he's reading all the people's names who were there and at the thing. these are leads for our sales department. And then they start calling up, and person goes, hey, you just read my name on the air. Is there anything I get? Yes, you get to talk to Kim Blockcamp in sales. But it brings us a level of fun and comedic value, but also you never know what's going to happen. You never know. We have one sales rep at our radio station, and this was 2 years ago, goes out to a dinner with her husband, who's in the automotive industry, sitting there having a conversation with this guy, and this guy goes, I have this issue that I'm dealing with. We're trying to find everybody that has these cars. We have airbag recalls, and we got to pay them to get their new airbags in there. That was the biggest client I think iHeart had that entire year. So she's at a dinner with somebody, and this person comes, well, you know what? We can do that. We got this thing called the iHeart app. We have the ability to be able to, long story short, it became a huge and successful campaign. You never know who's your next client on your radio station. And there was a time when I would always hear the salespeople, I'm listening to, the Odyssey stations to see who's advertising that's not advertising with us, because potentially we can steal them away. It's like, okay, well, let's just go and just find out who's advertising on anything. Who's out there. It's the person that is maybe not trying radio because they don't think about it. That we need to go get, like the airbag guy that got tens of millions of dollars that is sitting there from the government. Let's take their money.
We'll gladly take their money to radio.
I just had one just this past weekend. My wife and I went to a home show, and there was this new mortgage company that had some newfangled type of mortgage that we were looking into to try and refinance our house. And I told him, I work for Westwood One. He goes, oh, you guys do sports, don't you? I said, yeah, we do. He said, well, can I advertise on the Super Bowl with you guys? I went, hell yeah, you can. Got his card. That's been turned in as a lead.
We are encouraging you, by the way, to join in on our conversation by texting the number to Text Groove you see on the screen here. And Andrea, do you have a question? About this microphone?
It's not working, but I can yell.
Yeah. You can yell.
This comes in from North Carolina. There we go. Now it's working. This comes in from North Carolina. And Dana, I'm looking at you for this one. Overcoming territoriality. Salespeople that don't want you contacting their clients directly.
That happens every day. It just depends, I guess, what we're trying to accomplish, right? If someone on the air staff is needing an endorsement and they have that salesperson has that client, you obviously go. You don't want to step on any toes. You go to the AE, and if they're not working with you, go to the sales manager. And I kind of like Mojo's out-of-the-box ideas. If it's something you want, right, it's situational. But if it's an endorsement, make a video on social media, tag them, and it will get back to that AE. And then they're forced to bring up the conversation.
I'm shocked that you have a salesperson that doesn't. I've not worked for any of those guys. Really? The territorial salespeople? I mean, I feel like sales right now wants as much help as possible. So that's wild.
Like, for example, if what you were saying that you could call up a guy like, all of us are all the time people that have been endorsing us and, been clients of ours for 16, 17 years. And I would feel nothing about calling and saying, hey man, we want to do this, give me some cash. I can just hear the walls reverberating when I walk in the next day. You're taking money out of our pocket that we could be having as a sales thing because you're going after him for promotion dollars and I can just hear
So
it's not worth the fight.
So I'll give you a great example. So that's viable. That if we say, hey, can we borrow or can we get $10,000? If Steve says he's taking it off the buy, I'm not going to do it. There's no way. It has made him a greater client to the show because he has seen even more benefit off of the non-traditional thing that we're doing. So definitely don't, man, you got the highest rates on the station. You are a dumb bastard. I don't like do that to him, but you are now friends with him. I encourage you to be incredible friends with, your clients. And I will say this, the reason why I have had those friends that have come to me and said, man, we gotta pull off. We gotta, this is not working. I had this thing. I'm like, hey, don't pull off. Let me see what we can do for you. Give me a little bit of time and work it. You can save the account way better than Kim in sales can save the account.
You know, I want to talk about something we talked a little bit earlier. You guys were talking about stealing stuff, fish bowls of business cards, stealing ideas. Back when I first started in the industry a long time ago, I would look to like major market stations and try to steal concepts and ideas and bring it to my smaller market station. But in this day and age, that's kind of flipped a little bit. And Dana, you work with stations all up and down the West Coast in different market sizes. And Mojo, you're in a bunch of, you got some smaller markets and bigger markets. And George, you've got networks of stations. What are some old school ideas that are coming back around? Because vintage is a thing. I mean, we've got vintage shops everywhere. So we'll say vintage radio. We won't say old school. We'll say vintage concepts that are working, that are you're able to take and monetize and bring new business back that once existed before that hasn't existed in the last couple of years.
I think the best ideas are stolen, so steal some ideas. We're going to take an idea that our LA station used to do, and it's finder's fees. They encourage the jocks to bring leads to sales, your sales manager, and if that client signs the line and they spend X amount of money, that jock gets a finder's fee of $500 or a gift card or whatever we can come up with the budgets. And it encourages jocks to go out, which like Mojo says they should be doing, but it gives them a little pep in their step to go out and try to score themselves some endorsements. And if that client signs, not only do they get their talent fee, whatever they're getting to endorse, but they'll get a little finder's fee on top of that.
My favorites, we do car giveaways that are like the, make out with a Mustang, rear on the Wrangler, all the goofy contests that we've done over the years. Those always work. Get out of the idea that you can't broadcast live somewhere now with technology. There's probably many talent in this room that broadcasted from their hotel room today, and nobody knows that you're here. Well, put that in a business and sell it to them. That's great. One of the greatest ideas we did, and we did this to benefit our Mojo's Breaking and Entering Christmas Wish. We offered up the idea that we were going to auction off different things on the show. One of them was you get to be the Mojo in the Morning announcer, the deep voice guy for the day. And the car dealer guys, Thad, who owns the big car dealerships in town, Thad Zott, paid us $10,000 for our charity, and then he bought more advertising with the station because he wasn't on with the station, and he sat there in the corner of the room like the old-fashioned microphone. Now back to Mojo in the Morning. This is Thad Zott from Zott, and it was, honestly, it was fun. It was goofy, it was campy, it was stupid, and it was fun. And then, he comes back, and what do? I talk to him for, 3 or 4 minutes about something that's going on at the dealership, and it becomes a day of us goofing. The listeners get it. They know what we're doing, and now you got a friend in the dealership.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been discussing at Westwood One Cumulus is a study that came out probably a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Nostalgia. It's really kind of an interesting take on what's old is new again. No, it's not to make you feel old. It's to make you feel about what happened in the past. We were bringing up some of the things like, I think it was the NBA did it a couple of weeks ago, where they brought some of their old announcers back on and brought in, well, how could we turn that, what we can do in radio? A lot of us have been doing this a long time. Radio's been around a long time. How can we make people feel good about the past without making them feel old? So it's just a new way to do things like we used to do, but not have them feel that they're old.
Everybody's doing the Goo Goo Dolls, Iris, and some of them have been just so funny, especially like our audience and people on our show, they weren't even alive in the 90s. You know what I mean? So everybody's done something kind of fun with that. And again, I say this, radio started all of this. I hate to sit there and harp on that, but we did. We just never took the credit for it.
Yeah, and again, we're more than just speakers. We're so much more. We're a whole 360 campaign with anything you do with all of us. And again, would you think 20 years ago you were going on sales calls and meeting with a car dealership? Would you think 20 years ago that you were going to be handling 15, 20 radio stations? Things have changed.
I'm mad that we weren't. I think about this. Actually, last night I had dinner with Tim, and we were having this conversation with Tim and Phil Becker, and I said, I'm kind of mad that we didn't take this approach years ago. You know what I mean? Like, we kind of did a little bit, like we did all the car dealer remotes and all those things. But think about what we could have done years ago, when we thought this, or if we stopped the closed-minded ideas. And I'm not going to say that I always was take any talent fee. I mean, you got a million salespeople that will tell you that was bullshit back then. But I'm kind of mad that I didn't, because it's fun. It actually, what we do on a daily basis is sales. We're all selling ourselves and our radio stations. And I'll be honest with you, it's a hell of a lot more fun than me having to go work at the Home Depot,
Well, I think back in the day, we actually kept the bar businesses going because we were always, doing the events at night for them and wowing them over, and they kept doing repeat business. And we get paid cash out of the register and walk out the door and go to the bar next door and drink more. Again, if you have any additional questions, again, feel free to text us and join in the conversation. Andrea, do you have anybody right now?
I do. And George, I'm looking at you for this one. Again, going back to everybody's in sales, it's not just our sales folks, it's not just our on-air personalities. This coming in from Alberta. How do you energize your production/writing team to make great commercials, not just the classic 30-second rip and read, when they have 30 to 40 things to produce every single day? It seems to be too many boring spots on the airs these days.
ChatGPT, AI,
Paid
everybody's using it. And, when you're having to do a lot more with less, use the technology to the best of your ability. All our people use it. You got to be careful with it. Jocks especially, I tell them to rewrite stuff. Don't just let them. But, we have a very small production department for our national ads. He is worked to death. So we try to find ways to help him out, whether it's ChatGPT, AI. We use Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. So any of the technologies that you can use to help get where you want to go. I use it anytime I'm writing anything. I'll just throw it in Copilot and go, oh, that made it sound a heck of a lot better. So, instead of looking up a thesaurus, you're using that. So anything that you can do to help. But we also have a lot of our jocks will ask and work with our production departments, simply because especially if they're going to read it, I always like to have the jock have input into the copy. So when we get, and this happens all the time on the national level, we get spots from national marketers and agencies, and we have to rewrite them because it just doesn't make sense. You could tell that these people probably weren't in radio. They're sitting in some office in New York City throwing stuff together. We go ahead and rewrite it to make it sound right so it'll give results to that client.
And we're getting super close on time here. And so again, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them after the fact as well. We do have some great takeaways from all of our panelists available, again, in that CRS app. Make sure you have that on your phone. Just want to do one final thought with each of you, because now that we're literally all in sales, whether we want to admit it or not, but we are all salespeople, whether for our own brand or for our stations or our companies. But what is one sales skill that you have developed or learned in the last year that you're applying to your everyday that's going to continue on in the future to ensure that we still have jobs?
I would say just learn how to sell yourself. No one can sell you better than you. And there's no shame in helping out your sales staff, going out, like Mojo said, getting leads for them. If you're needing something or if you're wanting to help out, just sell yourself. You don't have to know every product Odyssey has, you can sell. You don't need to know all that. But if you can do the bare minimum and get the conversation going and then bring in the salespeople to close, do that.
I just say lie. That's honestly, don't just be the closer for the client. Be the person to open the door.
And I would say, try not to say no, but what if? How can I make it work? If they're looking for this, well, I might not be able to do this, but I can do this that hopefully will give them the same results.
Any additional questions?
We have a couple.
Okay.
This one's coming in from Michigan, from Mojo. How do you realign a pitch that may be underselling an endorsement or spot? Is there such thing as devaluing your brand by putting too many mentions or committing to too many obligations with the client?
Wow. There's 30 seconds. I don't know if I can do that on the
this.
clock.
Come on. No pressure.
Come talk to me. I don't even know what the answer would be on that one. I used to think all the time when I heard a ton of people doing endorsements on radio shows, I thought it sounded horrible. And then PPM came into play, and realistically, listeners hearing your voice and not hearing the O'Reilly commercial is probably a little bit better. So I don't know if that answers the question, but there's 6 seconds, 5 seconds.
Yeah, well, we're out of time. Unfortunately, it's flashing red. That means we've got to we got to go and clear the stage. But thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you for showing up.